Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining the latest Service Department News webinar. And today we're going to be talking about building brand loyalty. My name's Eloise Hanson. I'm the editor of Service Department News, and SAN is a trade publication covering the global service department, apart hotel and extended stay industry. Our webinar series sponsor is The Residence, a luxury service department brand here in London. We do have Steve on the call today, who we're going to be hearing from shortly. But for now, we're going to play a brief video for you. And further details about The Residence have been popped into the chat if you would like to learn more. Now, a brief overview of how today's webinar is going to run. We'll spend around 45 minutes chatting with our speakers today, followed by some time at the end to take any questions. So if you do have any burning or pressing questions, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens, and I'll get around to asking those as and when relevant. And a reminder that this webinar is being recorded, and everyone that's registered will receive a copy of that recording. So let's meet our panelists for today, and it's going to be easier for me to hand over to each so that they can introduce themselves, and I'll move from left to right as per the slides on your screens. So Kristi, let's kick off with yourself and welcome.
Hi, thanks so much, Eloise. Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Kristi Gole. I am the Executive Vice President of Strategy at Global Hotel Alliance. Global Hotel Alliance is the world's largest alliance of independent hotel brands. We currently have over 40 brands with 800 hotels across 100 countries. And we connect them all with a loyalty program. So this topic is very relevant today. The loyalty program is called GHA Discovery, and it recognizes and rewards customers who stay at these independently owned brands. And actually, Service Departments is coming into the mix with Cheval Collection, which is coming in next year, that has 806 service departments. So again, very relevant for this today.
Super. Thanks a lot, Kristi. And Steve, over to you. Welcome.
Hello. I made it just about. Yes, I'm Steve Lowy. I'm founder and CEO of the Residence Apartments and Jitaku. Jitaku will be an apart hotel brand with a small number of units starting next year, which is really exciting. And the Residence is a more traditional service apartment extended stay brand. We have 76 apartments across 5 locations in London, with a new location opening in January. As part of the business, we also have a student business where we look after around 5,000 American students a year in London and Europe. My background was actually in hotels and hostels, so loyalty was obviously quite a big part of what we did.
Brilliant. Thank you, Steve. And Victoria, over to you. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. So yeah, I'm Victoria Curley. I'm head of commercial at Roomzzz Aparthotels. Roomzzz is an independent apart hotel brand. We now operate 866 apartments across 8 cities, spanning from London up to Edinburgh. So I'm a hotelier of about 17 years now, but I'm excited to be here to talk about loyalty and I'm sure learn some things as well.
Thanks a lot, Victoria. And unfortunately, Natalia from Lamington Group is unable to join today's webinar due to an illness, but all the LinkedIn profiles of our speakers have been popped into the chat. I do encourage you all to connect because there's going to be a lot to get through today and we might not quite get around to everything that you wish to learn. So yeah, all details are in the chat there. Now, just some context before we kick off. Here are some recent examples of how loyalty is being reshaped. Millennium Hotels and Resorts and Room2 have relaunched their loyalty programs. Both offer different value propositions. So My Millennium is a 3-tier membership with increased benefits as you progress up, and they've also just launched a corporate booker loyalty scheme. Whereas the Hometel Club is built around instant gratification and rewards. We're also seeing loyalty programs expand, as Kristi mentioned during her introduction. Global Hotel Alliance is onboarding its first service department brand, Cheval, and a new loyalty program, a travel reward program, which is points-based for short-term rentals and boutique hotels, has just launched to market, called Journey. Now, on the next slide, in terms of how travel managers are handling incentivized points and rewards within their travel programs, the following comment has been provided from the Institute of Travel Management, and I just want to read it out for you quite quickly. So for many SMEs, incentivized points which reward individual travelers can be seen as a welcomed employee benefit. However, as loyalty programs are assigned to the individual, policies are in place to protect the company's code of conduct and support DE&I within the travel program. So developing an understanding of personal tax liability and rules under the Anti-Bribery Act helps to protect travellers, and this aims to eradicate unlawful negotiations, such as suppliers offering points for company business, and reduces bookings made outside of policy. And so additional authorization and approval procedures are examples of how corporate buyers are managing this process. Essentially, travel managers are striking a balance between enabling travelers the freedom to utilize an employee benefit whilst protecting all parties in line with their company values. So I thought that might help accommodation providers just understand how travel managers are managing those incentivized points and reward schemes within their travel programs. So without further ado, let's kick off. And I want to open up with a question to Kristi, because we saw from one of the slides earlier that there is a lot of refreshed interest in loyalty programs. I'm seeing either programs completely relaunch or new ones come to market. So Kristi, why do you think loyalty is receiving such large renewed attention at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I would say probably we've noticed it for hotels specifically in the last maybe since 2019, like even pre-COVID. Loyalty be increasingly at the forefront for all the big chains. If you step back and just kind of think about why that would be the case and why it makes sense, I mean, it's a way to connect, seemingly disparate brands or different segments or a group of different entities with one message and one broad offering for consumers. So it's a lot easier to just say Marriott Bonvoy, and it connects all the brands within it, all the hotels within it. There's one value proposition, than to try to explain all the other stuff. And consumers are more and more looking for that. And it's actually an advantage, because if you have, let's say, a hotel chain that has a very specific brand to it and a very specific strategy, you don't have to actually expand that hotel chain. You could just focus and dig in on what you already do, but you tap into something larger, a larger program. And that's what a consumer wants. They want more choice and they want more value. And the idea is they can't always maybe stay with you because of limited, offering across destinations, or because of maybe different price restrictions if they're traveling on business or whatnot. But they want to know that you're part of something bigger. So it really allows, even if you're part of an owned group, or if it's franchise, whatever it is, at GHA, it's an alliance. So they're all independently owned, but it allows them to be part of something bigger and to offer something bigger to the consumer. And that is something that that is very much desired. And there is an increased focus on that. And I think that they're seeing great success with that. And again, just examples of, you no longer on the consumer side hear about Marriott, you hear about Bonvoy. You don't hear about Accor, you hear about Accor Live Limitless. You don't hear about Hilton, it's Hilton Honors. For GHA, consumers don't know GHA, they know GHA Discovery. So absolutely, for hotels, it has been a big shift, and it's something that I think people are leaning into, and it's proving to be pretty fruitful.
Mm-hmm. And especially as you see all the hotels now start to launch extended stay products, I think loyalty is going to become an even greater focus for the longer stay sector. Drilling down then into what actually travellers want, Kristi, what are they looking for from their loyalty programs?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of advantages of loyalty, but one of them is you can actually just ask the customers directly. A loyalty database gives you a kind of somewhat captive audience. It's an engaged group that you can go to and ask exactly those questions. And we did that last month. We did a travel trend survey, and we went to our members and over email, and we asked them about their plans next year, where they're planning to go, if they're going to travel more or less, and also where loyalty comes into their decision-making process. So we looked at the analysis and at a global level, and actually it was very consistent across most markets and across different segments of customers. But I mean, very much they said, which they said last year as well, we always look for the delta year over year of changes, but loyalty is a very big factor, and it's the number 2 factor. It's had that place 2 years in a row now. The number 1 factor is quality of accommodation. So is it a nice product that they're staying in? And we're asking our customers, and we have largely 4- and 5-star hotels. So we have a specific segment. So again, it'll be skewed in that regard, but they say the quality of accommodation is the most important. Loyalty program comes in second. And that is above location or neighborhood. It is far above price point or even hotel brand. So that's something we always are looking at. And again, the whole package is what someone wants. But if you're doing like for like against the competition, those factors play higher in their decision-making process. And then the other thing we ask them is, okay, well, within a loyalty program, what do you value most? So if that's important to you, what do you care most about? Consistently, we keep hearing it's the enhanced experience during their stay. So our top tier members, they're getting room upgrades to a suite. They're getting the early check-in, late checkout, maybe complimentary breakfast. They're getting those perks, and that enhances their stay, obviously, and they're traveling to have a nice experience. And so the loyalty program helps make that more attainable. And then for the lower tier members who don't have access to those perks, of course, they care more about the tangible, immediate benefits of a member rate, which is a discount, or just the special offers. They care about more price-based things. So the loyalty program is just really adding on to the other experience that they're looking for. And they know that they can get that. It's a value add that shouldn't cost any addition. So that's why it very much, if you have similar products, let's say same location, if you have 2 hotels next to each other or service apartments next to each other, if everything else is like for like, loyalty program will shift that significantly. If they're a member of a program and they want to be enhancing that experience.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kristi. Let's dive into further now into what travellers want. And I want to bring Steve into the conversation here. You mentioned during your intro that you have a student accommodation, student housing arm of the business. You deal with students hell of a lot. What do these younger demographics value, and more importantly, why is this crucial for the extended stay industry?
I think investing in youth is a long-term investment, and if you look at the round the world ticket that's really popular, with backpackers, and I was fortunate enough to do it myself. The whole idea of the brands doing it, it was a bit like was said earlier by Kristi, was that it was a One World ticket or a Star Alliance ticket, and this was 20 years ago. The whole aim was to get someone at the back of the plane on that loyalty scheme to eventually move to the front of the plane. And it's the same with the bigger hotel brands, where they've added lots more brands for different demographics, for different reasons to travel, with different budgets. In reality, and look after around 1,500 students a semester, so a lot of them will go, and many from America, a lot of them will go to Europe on a weekend. Most important, price. Second most important, location, as we said before. And third is often customer reviews or word of mouth. There are more people under 23, this is not a study, but from what I've been speaking to a lot of people about, that will search their trip on TikTok as opposed to Google. Yeah, most big hotel brands are not advertising their brands to young people on TikTok. They are on Google AdWords, or adverts on the side of buses or in airports. So that's really important. The other thing, I guess, which I don't necessarily agree with, but is very common now, is the cancel culture of brands. So if you are not authentic, if you say you're a green brand and you're not, younger people will research that and call you out if you're not. And I think that is sometimes a challenge, and that's why I believe some bigger brands, not just necessarily in hospitality, don't target younger people for the fear of being cancelled. And that happened with the Ukraine, Russia situation. It's happened with the Israel situation. You know, if you take a side, then you can get yourself in serious bother. That is a challenge for the extended stay market, because if again you're going to go for a young person and you say you're, you know, whatever it may be, your promises are, and you're not delivering it, they will call you out quicker than you will even be able to respond, and they may get to 25,000 people by the time you wake up. And so I think that's where it is. But the drivers really, and will remain, is, you know, price, location, and reviews as a over brand. I think. I think there's amazing youth-focused brands out there across all sectors. Probably more within accommodations, probably more in the hostel space, where you've got really cool brands doing good stuff. But when I ran hostels, it was amazing. It was so price sensitive that as long as your reviews were good, you would get that booking. And ultimately, loyalty schemes are to drive more direct business. That's the core of all of them. Otherwise, people wouldn't do them because they're quite expensive to run. You know, there's a lot of work that goes behind them. The other thing, if young people are engaged with a loyalty scheme, it has to be easy. A lot of young people don't have a wallet anymore, and when you go to a restaurant and they give you a physical card stamp, it's almost pointless for certain age groups because they use their phone. You know, they don't, or their watch. And I know a lot of people now don't carry wallets with them. But obviously, if you're going to give pieces of paper to get stamps, you're going to lose them. And what you're going to do, collect 8 or 9 physical cards, then that's not good for the environment. So I think that ease of use and getting something that's really relevant back is important. Yeah, it'll be very interesting when we go Gen Z, Gen X, Gen X in terms of what these drivers will be. Whereas the current sort of, you know, 20 to 30-year-olds have known technology in their hands forever, but the technology didn't have AI. Going forwards, it's going to be another level of requirement to make, I think, loyalty schemes more smart and delivered to younger people for what they need at that moment in time.
We're going to touch on the technology piece a bit later on in today's conversation. Interesting, you picked up on the rise of social media and how that's changing the landscape. My colleague earlier this week, Paul Stevens, editor of Short Term Rentals, held a webinar all around distribution and how social media is changing the landscape. Quite interestingly, he held a poll to his short-term rental network asking, how do they book? Is it direct? Is it via an OTA, Airbnb, etc.? And the largest, most volume, I suppose, of votes went through the direct route, which I found quite surprising. Anyone, feel free to challenge me on that notion. But if anyone's interested in that recording, I'm sure we can pull it out and share that in the chat. It's quite juicy. Learning what we have so far, Kristi, I'd like to come back to you for a moment here. You've got extensive experience working within the hotel industry, the global hotel industry. How would you apply that experience, that knowledge, and those insights with the hotel brands to the serviced apartment sector? I can see you're moving into the space. What key learnings can we bring here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one comment when you just mentioned, sorry, I'll back up to what you were talking about of like the book direct and how it's a surprising thing to see. I mean, obviously, you know, online travel agents or travel agents as well are significant channels. In that research I told you about, we asked the same of where do you like to search hotels and where do you like to book hotels? And the findings for this one was like 40% said they want to use the hotel loyalty program, again, like an aggregator. that was 40%. 32% was book direct at the hotel site. So actually those are pretty close. Only 9% said they wanted online travel agents, and like 2% said call center, 1% said credit card. But anyway, they say that, although there's a large share of wallet being tapped by those OTAs. Okay, but back to your question about, how does loyalty apply to extended stay? Or yes, we have some residences in our hotel portfolio, and we are largely a hotel program. That's why I specify that, because that's our knowledge, that's our wheelhouse. Cheval Collection is the first. It's going to be entering our portfolio. They're not live yet. They'll come in next year because they have to make some technology changes first that were already planned prior to them joining us. And so they are bringing in apartments in key locations. And truly, it's the same idea, though. You have someone who's wanting to stay in a property, and they have different contexts for why. A lot of their apartments are actually for short-term use. They're not all extended stay. So they see a lot of it's the exact same situation as a hotel would, of, okay, why would they choose your property instead of someone else? And a lot of times they want the space, they want a kitchen, they want a living area. Well, they're competing with suites at hotels. And so again, it's just who you're competing with and what is your value prop to compete with them. And then for extended stay, we were like, okay, well, how does this change? If someone is staying 60 nights at your property, do you want to be giving rewards and paying a small fee for giving these out so that they can spend it, and how that all works? And we just have some guidelines, and we work with them to say, is this relevant for what you have? Does this make sense for your economically? And then is it going to be doing any behavior shift that you want to take place? Is it actually contributing toward that, or is it just cannibalizing? And I mean, what they've chosen is exactly the same rules. We're not changing any of our terms and conditions for the hotel program. It's 100% applicable to their even extended stay, at least in their eyes, where you're getting the rewards. Discovery Dollars is our rewards. It's like points, but it's more like cash. And so you're earning that on the first 30 nights. And after 30 nights, you're no longer earning it on that, but you're earning it on the non-room spent. So if you're still dining in restaurants, if that's in the properties, you're still getting stuff for that. So those rules apply for all of our hotels. And so there's no confusion for our customers. And Cheval was saying that there's definitely going to be a benefit to their customers for choosing them with this, and then giving them more reason to come stay with them again, giving them a reason to choose a higher room category, but also, to Stephen, your point, is to make them also choose to book direct. Direct is absolutely the least cost of sale. And so, I mean, it does cost money to operate your website and app and have ads for that. But I mean, it's still, if you compare it to third-party channels where some people are finding these, they're wholesalers or travel agents or online travel agents, then those are sometimes between 8% to 20% commission. If it's wholesale, it could be 30-40% hit. So if you can have them book direct, you don't have that cost of sale. It's a very different mix, and they're looking for that, and loyalty very much is the way that you move that.
Thanks, Kristi. And what a great segue to bring Victoria into the conversation here, because Roomzzz has run a very successful loyalty program. I believe the direct booking, you've had great success as a result of running this program. What I am curious to hear is, how has that loyalty program adapted in order to cater to these evolving needs of the long stay guests?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's probably important to point out Perks is still relatively young. It's 4 years old now, just turned 4 in October. And its original source was really a direct conversion strategy piece for us. As an independent operator, we were heavily reliant on OTAs. And actually, we were hearing the same thing from our guests, that they really wanted to be able to book direct. And they were coming to our website and seeing what we had. But then we were doing what a lot of hoteliers do, and we were feeding into the narrative that it's cheaper to book on OTAs, that they have these programs and their membership schemes that give you access to more than we were giving in our own world, which is ultimately where Perks came from, was our desire to actually give our guests what they were asking for. I think when we were looking at what Perks was going to be and how we were going to shape it, looking at our long stay guests was a really key point for us. We also launched our length of stay based pricing model at the same time. So coinciding with Perks launch, we also started doing our pricing model based on whether you were staying for a shorter period of time, so a week or less, or what we call mid stay, so that's 7 to 27 nights or 28 nights plus. But a key part for us was making sure that all of our guests were going to be able to benefit from Perks. We didn't want to do what a lot of loyalty schemes do, and for reason, because if someone's staying for 6 months, giving them full access to everything can get a little bit overwhelming on a cost basis for an independent operator. But we wanted to make sure that they still had access to everything in the same way. So regardless of length of stay, they do qualify for those upgrades. Regardless of length of stay, they do still get that welcome amenity. Our membership pricing is also on our long stay rates. So even though they are already a packaged price to be attractive to those long stay guests, it does also still have our membership direct discount on, so we can have confidence in our best rate guarantee that you are not going to find a cheaper price anywhere for something with us than you are on the Roomzzz brand website. I think that quote you put up at the start from ITM was really interesting, because that also played into a huge part of our decision making. And for us, the only channel you don't earn points and rewards with perks is by booking via an OTA. If you book via a TMC or any other third-party agent, you still qualify for the full amount of points. There's no kind of grey area of switching anything off in there. And that was really because we want to work with our agency partners, and we understand that it moves the people out of policy very easily if the individual thinks they're going to benefit by going to the hotel directly. And we didn't want to put our agency partners in that position, but we did want to take back control from the narrative of our pricing and our distribution from OTA specifically, which is what we've really been able to do with perks at the moment, and where we've gotten it to now. Kind of OTAs and the direct Roomzzz website pace the same for volume month on month, which is something we're really, really proud of, and pretty difficult for an independent brand to do.
Well done, well done. And what baffles me, I suppose, is that there are so many moving parts when you really kind of look at developing a loyalty program. When you look at the distribution, the channels, the partners, the supply chain. I do know that wearing my hotelier hat, that when it comes to data and collecting data and trying to understand how to use that data to inform the decision-making process can be overwhelming. So with that in mind, Victoria, how or what data is it that you collect and track, and how do you actually use that data to tailor offers when you've got so much going on?
So I think for us at first, we started tracking too much. And I'm sure some people will say to me, you can never have too much data. And whilst I agree to a certain extent, I think we overcomplicated, especially that membership data side and the richness of the profile that we wanted on our guests. I think we actually overestimated how useful that was to us in the business. And we were collecting data points that actually we weren't going to use for anything, but felt like they were must-haves. So that's something we've reviewed and actually constantly review still, and are going through another round of at the moment to really understand what do we need to build the right segmentation for our marketing strategies. And for us, that falls into two main buckets now. We now have this really clear segmentation in our database in terms of member, not member. And that's the core of the start of everything for us, right? So the messaging to our member database isn't focused on the benefits of perks, because they already know that. They're a member and they're engaging with the scheme. So actually now we can look at the richness of their profile and take out actually what are their reasons for stay, what are their usual booking channels, what's their source of booking, how can we use that data to really make sure that we're sending them the right message. So we can segment down into actually this bucket of membership guests that always stay around the time of Christmas markets. Now we've got this really nice engaged pool of data to be able to send out that right email at the right time to the right set of guests. And that's really where we focused our source around data, is making sure that what we're collecting is useful and how we're using it is benefiting our guests. So we're getting them the message they want to see. Some of that then is sentiment based. So we'll use kind of look at open and click through rates of those generic sends of things to see how successful they are. But for us, that's probably the biggest thing.
Could I pick you up on the segmentation piece? And I want to do so because Steve was talking earlier about the Gen X and the Gen Z, and how do you tailor programs in the future to cater to the younger demographics? Do you segment by age? Is that a priority? Should we be looking at demographics by by quite literally their demographics, Gen X, Millennial, Gen Z. Just curious as to how you approach that.
I think it has its place for sure, but I think what we've started doing in Roomzzz more is placing more emphasis on, again, a point Steve picked up around our social media marketing. So we've really put in a really robust program so that we know we are spreading that same message. So anything for us that goes out in an email marketing campaign, that we may get more engagement from different parts of our audience, actually that same content, that same messaging is also going out on all of our social channels. It's also going out on our affiliate marketing network. So we know that it's really driving through all of the segments.
So touching on success then, how do you measure the success of your efforts and the actual performance of that loyalty program?
Yeah, I think for us, direct booking channel performance is the biggest one. We want to see that as we grow the number of apartments we have, that we're continuing to grow the revenue coming through that direct channel and growing that average order value. I think that's probably the biggest points for us as we move forward. And for us, that biggest measure is that balance of OTA revenue versus direct website revenue, because they're really two direct competing channels. They are both booking engine platforms that are selling to the same type of consumer with the same rate plans in the same place. So that's our biggest metric that we really hone in on is how that balance of the two is sitting.
Kristi, can I ask how success is measured within GHA Discovery? And if you can maybe drill down on KPIs, such as an impact it might have on ADRs, that would be really useful.
Yeah, I mean, all right, so there's ADR, and I know that's come up a few times. A lot of times, like revenue managers will ask about, what is the increase in the transaction cost or like the ADR, but I very much and it's a continuation of the conversation we've had this whole call so far. For loyalty, it's a lot more about the net ADR. So this is where, yes, you might have the same ADR across channels, but then the cost of sale of those channels is different. So going back to if they book direct, the cost of sale is less. And so the net ADR you get for that transaction is significantly more. It's profitable. It's more profitable. So in terms of loyalty, if you say on a transaction basis, the net ADR is very important. And the next aspect is the customer lifetime value. Are they staying with you more? Are they repeating? Are they repeating and staying longer? And then that's where loyalty also plays in. So those two factors absolutely are economically favorable for our hotels. And the ROI, I mean, that we see on an average right now, if you do the cost of sale, the cost of loyalty, the benefit delivery, the fee to us, everything, I mean, they're getting on average a 17 times ROI per dollar spent. And that's, we used to have a different program that had a different reward component, and it used to be 14 times. But I mean, if you're looking at, OTA, ROI on ad spend with them of placement, and, most people I think are pretty happy with the 10 to 12 ROI. So it really just depends on, how much occupancy they need to drive and all of this. But the KPIs we look for in our program is, are we driving business to our hotels on the most profitable channels? So absolutely, as Victoria said, we don't discriminate against travel agents or third-party channels. We want to drive direct, but absolutely there's a place for travel agents. About 10% of our hotel's business come from travel agents and travel advisors. And we don't want to compete with them. Some customers prefer that, and those are partners of ours. They're still eligible. So that is a profitable channel to some of our hotels. It works, it makes sense. Very much, again, our competition is the more expensive channels, like an online travel agent. And some of our hotels are spending a 20% commission on that, and it is competing. So our metrics are largely, are we getting more people into the program? So that gives us a larger base that we can communicate with and drive to the properties. So enrollments, of course. And then in terms of repeat, are we driving repeat? We're a loyalty program, so it's not just in signing them up, but did we drive a second stay? A lot of people don't stay in a hotel or a hotel chain more than once. You're lucky if you get twice. So we have a lot of campaigns that do multiple stays. And we had a really cool promotion we did this summer, which was really wild to see the response. We had 2 members stay at all of our brands because they wanted to get our grand prize. They stayed at 40 brands. Each of them did within a 3-month period. So anyway, that was a really...
Wow.
A real extreme example of our program did some cool stuff to get the attention of some customers who said, yes, I want to try out all of these different brands. And so they stayed multiple times in our program and all at different places, which is what, we're driving new customers to them at no cost of acquisition to our brand. It's just our own marketing at no cost. And so then the next thing is just, are we driving it on direct? Are they booking on our website? That is our favorite, but of course, if they book on third parties that are eligible, then the customer is taken care of still. So those are the main metrics we look at. And then the smaller metrics for a loyalty program is, are our members engaged? Because if they're engaged and you've done it right, then they will stay with you more. It'll contribute to the other factors. So reward redemption, and our redemption rate has doubled year over year, and it's pretty significant. But it's really great because that means that they are seeing the value of what we're giving them. And in order to use our rewards, you have to come stay. So it's driving a repeat stay. It's always incremental spend. A lot of them are spending 6 to 8 times more in cash than they are the reward redemption amount. So so anyway, that said, there's a lot of like more tactical metrics you can look at that contribute to those larger ones, but it's all about, are they choosing our hotels because of the program, and are they repeating more, and are they doing it on direct channels, the most profitable channels?
Thanks, Kristi. I'll give another shout out to the audience as well, that if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens, and we'll get round to asking those. Staying with you, Kristi, for just a moment, how often do you, and Victoria, feel free to chime in here, like how often do you actually analyze these data sets when it comes to tracking success? Is this daily, weekly, monthly? You know, I'm asking this for advice if anyone is looking to launch or in the space.
Terms of like ROI calculation, we only do that probably a couple times a year. In terms of just ongoing metrics of, you know, what is our revenue versus last year? What is our redemption rate? What is our enrollment? All of that we look at on a weekly basis. We have daily stuff. So like our web metrics, we look at our website and app stuff daily. And those are smaller channels. And so the growth is just a lot more fun to watch. We're selling our rewards right now at a discount. It's called Buy D Dollars, and it's a campaign. It's 1 week. We just sold $1 million of D Dollars. That's $1 million cash we're driving to our hotels that we'll reimburse the hotels for. But anyway, on those stays, we know all the positive metrics that come from those. And so we watch all that kind of on a very, very regular basis. A lot of times it's just case by case though. Like if we have a meeting with a brand, we'll go ahead and dig into their ROI, their stuff as needed. We don't do that. I mean, we have 40 brands, so we're not doing that daily, but we're doing it when relevant, or we have committee meetings. And if we're meeting with the CEOs, we'll make sure that we have, you know, the most current set of stats that we have available. And then there's some that are longer term. So if you just launch something, you can't really look at the results within a short period of time. You need to give it some time. So we'll give like an initial read on stuff, and then we're tracking it. Redemption rate, we have to watch really closely though, because you know, you've got liabilities out there, and our auditing committee wants to make sure that we have enough cash to cover if you're never going to have 100% redemption. But if you estimated a 30% redemption rate, and we have $100 million in circulation right now, which is worth $100 million US. And if we got that estimation wrong, if we have a 50% redemption rate, we need 20 million cash to have on hand to be able to service. So like there's a lot of stuff you have to watch really closely with loyalty programs. So if you have a program that knows how to do that, it takes care of it for you. But those are things we look at probably more regularly.
Thanks, Kristi. Steve, thanks for your patience. But I'm gonna bring you back in here, because we touched earlier, or I read out a quote from ITM, more geared around the corporate travel sector. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts around what are the challenges and opportunities for service department operators when it comes to loyalty within that corporate travel landscape.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a challenge. I think you know, we're in one city. We're relatively small. We have grown our direct business to about 20%, which is pretty good, through chatbots, we don't even have a booking engine, just through inquiries and referrals and word of mouth, which obviously saves a bit. With the larger corporates, you know, the blue chip companies, ultimately they want scale, they want reach, and that's where the reload agents come in. Within those travel programs, however, obviously we're not the only game in town, and other brands are offered. And I'm aware of certain brands, so the bookers, who have their own NPS scores for different providers. And so I guess for us to get first dibs, it's about being consistent with the old-fashioned way of being a hotelier or the service department operator, just delivering consistent service clean, safe apartments, dealing with things rapidly if they go wrong, great communication, regular cleaning days, housekeepers that are trained in our world to engage as if they're your home cleaner. So people feel like they're at home. That's the advantage of a service apartment over, smaller hotel rooms where people are staying with us for 2 or 3 months. They feel like they're living with us, not staying with us. And I think that's a really good way of driving it. As we grow, Jitaku, having more of an apart hotel product, even with one unit, I think that delivery of consistent service is massively important. But on the shorter stay corporate, I think there are ways of doing that. Some old-fashioned, LinkedIn, knocking on people's doors, going around with Christmas hampers, etc. But I think because there is so much choice out there, I think with the corporates, the bookers, the agents, people don't want to deal with issues. Things will happen, but if those issues drag on, that loyalty to that particular brand is harder. When I was running hotels, I created a brand, and we had our own very simple loyalty scheme. If you sign up to the newsletter, you got a 10% discount code. At the time, 15 to 20% on the OTAs, and we got to about 50% direct business. And this was in 2009. We built our own booking engine. At the time, you could see the average room rate per keyword typed into Google in our booking engine. So we had an average, an ADR per keyword phrase on Google, which was pretty cool. I overdid the data, but I'm a geek for that. So obviously now with GDPR, it's harder to do, but it was really powerful because then we focused our AdWords at the time onto those keywords, and it really, really drove massive returns. And it was simple. It was really simple. We were in London, Brighton, and Moscow, so not an obvious route. And I still remember we had 8 people who stayed in all 3 over a 2-year period. But I was just amazed that there was one that did all 3. London and Brighton was more obvious, but stuff like Roomzzz at the Global Hotel Alliance, the spread is so much greater that it's much easier to build even a corporate platform for loyalty where it's an obvious route. In the hostel world over in Australia, people tend to travel east or west around Australia. Yeah, and there's hostel brands all the way up one coast, and then there's hostel brands for the cities, and people tend to bounce around and follow that trend, and often through word of mouth. And as long as that first experience in Sydney or Melbourne is good, they'll then follow that brand around Australia. So I think it's challenging for really the tiny independents like us, but I think there's ability to build really good corporate loyalty for extended stay through consistent service and being in the right locations for particular brands.
It definitely you've touched on, you must have to stay somewhat abreast or aware of travel patterns and travel behaviors in terms of the actual location, which no doubt sort of plays into this. And Steve, you mentioned that you don't have a booking engine, but you do run chatbots that has certainly helped. And so with that in mind, how do you see technology reshaping this landscape, and can technology help to build trust?
Yeah, I think the accessibility to AI, which is amazingly accessible, people are just scared of it, will allow for smarter loyalty schemes. If you are able to hook any loyalty scheme to someone's One World club card to see where they're booking next and be able to deliver them the right hotels on the right budget, and whether they're traveling for work or business, work or pleasure, the smarter the loyalty scheme, the better it will be. As we all get used to using AI as a tool for good, as opposed to a fear of losing jobs, you'll be able to do that. As an example, I also have a marketing agency, and many years ago, we had a platform for independent hotels where we built websites for them, and we had about 200 hotels on it. We had a 19-year-old from UC Berkeley data science student who built a machine learning algorithm. AI was not readily available at the time, to work out, based on the location of the hotel, what the best time was to get a conversion on a booking by sending out the newsletter. Yeah, and so it was down to the minute, tracked over a 2-year period. He built that part-time in 8 weeks. In terms of if we had the scale and you had AI on that, and you could really build algorithms that work smart with your business and your brand, you will be able to have a loyalty scheme that is really, really, really helpful. So I think that's the. He's coming in. But yeah, so I think using technology, and it will become just a lot more accessible. There's a lot more students studying data science, which means there'll be a lot more graduates studying data science. I think if anyone on here has used ChatGPT and signed up for an account and paid for it, and you start having a go at ChatGPT, no, I don't like the response, I don't like what you're doing, shape it this way, use, this is Cheryl. Do you want to say hello to everyone on the webinar?
Hi, everyone. Hi,
Cheryl. Then you will just build, and you may have an algorithm for your loyalty scheme, you may have an algorithm for your direct booking channels, you may have an algorithm to calculate your impact on social media and whether TikTok is better to use on a weekend or a midweek. And all of those data streams, because hotels are probably one of the biggest data resources of any sort of mainstream business, it will become fascinating. And therefore, I think you'll have really, really smart loyalty schemes that know more about you than you probably do about yourself, and deliver you hotel offers or extended stay options that you don't even really have to think about, which obviously feels totally weird at the time. But I always say to people, if you go onto Netflix, they choose what you're watching because of what you've watched in the past, and that's just using an algorithm.
I want to, we touched on it earlier. In fact, we've touched on it quite a lot about the online booking process, be that third party, OTAs, or even direct. And on the topic of technology, Steve, I would like to hear more about your thoughts around the role of online booking platforms in the process, whether that is going to be third party or direct. What does that play? What role do these booking platforms play in establishing that trust and ultimately loyalty? And I say this because you are setting an experience for your customer or user before they've even set foot on property. And if that booking experience is in any way clunky and leads to frustration, and your customer hasn't even engaged, it's your first interaction, your brand interaction with said customer before you've even said hello to them. So Steve, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts as to how what are your thoughts on that process in terms of establishing trust and loyalty?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is most independent brands will be seen first on an OTA. And it's down to the brand to make the experience as fluid as possible and give an incentive, whether through price or experience or upgrade or loyalty or whatever it may be, to offer the best value. Doesn't need to be cheaper, but the best value experience direct. And that teams from housekeepers and bar staff or whatever understand the value of people booking direct. And I think that's really important. Investing in the right technology is obviously massive, and making sure it's a seamless experience. But I was talking to someone earlier, and for a long haul destination, people will look at will have 17 touch points before booking. Yeah, majority of those will probably be an OTA or a third party, something like TripAdvisor in terms of reviews. The advantage of an OTA for a consumer is that you get much better choice than going direct. And a lot of people will use that OTA to then go and look direct to see if it's better value. If it's not obviously better value, they'll feel more trust in booking direct on that OTA platform. That is where I think you've probably seen a growth in direct channels again, is that one, I think hoteliers see the value of having a direct booking. One, they are your customer, not the OTA's customer. And two, obviously there's a cost, although cost can be high to acquire your own customer. but I also think there's more readily available off-the-shelf software that's really good quality, that does deliver a really good booking experience, and matched with PMS systems and channel managers and distribution software and even CRM systems that can connect, even if you're a small 20-bedroom hotel, to provide a wonderful booking experience and follow-up. And I think because of the advancement in technology, particularly around the core, which is the PMS system, over the last 5 or 6 years, it's allowed brands, no matter how small or large, to really invest in that whole booking experience. Because you're right, if you go onto the website, it doesn't really work. You either won't book. If you go back to the OTA, as we know, a lot of them will offer last minute better priced hotels, not necessarily better value, in the same location where you have free cancellation, and then they'll go and book elsewhere. So once you've got them in your own infrastructure, it's a much more valuable customer than an OTA customer. The other thing is to convert people who book through OTAs to book direct next time, and that is down to old-fashioned amazing customer service and knowledge, and that is something that I think a lot of hotels fail to do, because the staff aren't trained well enough to understand the importance of converting that Booking.com customer or Expedia customer into a direct customer going forwards.
Thanks, Steve. I want to finish up with a question about the future and how programs and loyalty and trust might evolve in the future and what that might look like. So I'll come to Victoria, please, if I may. During my context slides, we saw that there were different value propositions in terms of loyalty schemes. You had your points-based, instant gratification, etc. Victoria, how do you see loyalty programs evolving within the apart hotel sector? And it seems like we've lost Victoria, so I might send this one over to Kristi, if I may. How do you see loyalty evolving down the line?
I mean, it's a good question. Evolving, I think, to Steve's point, AI can help things be a little smoother, more seamless. I think, customer expectations continue to just people get more demanding. And to your point, Eloise, of the online experience, is it starting even before they enter your property? Are you giving them the best experience? Whenever we ask them how important that is, they say it's not important, but I think it's just, it's table stakes. So the expectation is that it better be amazing, and I want everything else. And so I think that's just it's an evolving trend, in that everyone is just going to expect you to be really on your game, to know them. If in a loyalty program, there is the expectation that they've signed up for something, so you better do your part of recognizing the information they've given you. To Victoria's point of all these data points on their profile, they expect you to use them. And I think, the ones that are using them the most effectively, then the customers notice that. They notice that they didn't have to do extra steps. They notice that they're treated like a valued member. And I think with so much going on and so many different data things to action on, getting it right is harder and harder, actually, because there's 100. In our data mart, we have 172 fields on all of our members. Are all of them populated? No, but a lot of them are. Do we use all of them? No, we use probably about 5 of them pretty regularly. So again, thinking of Victoria's point of, you don't need to overcomplicate it, but customers might think, hey, I've stayed with you 30 times this year. Why do you always ask this? Or why do you always put this in my room when I don't drink? Why do you give me a bottle of wine? Or they really, the expectations, when you say how is loyalty evolving? I think the expectations are more and more that you have to be ahead of the customer. Even keeping up is hard to do, but you have to be ahead of it and think, proactively prompt things to them. Don't expect them to ask, you ask them. And then doing that digitally is really great. AI can help do that. It gets it a few steps further. To preempt stuff as much as possible pre-arrival, and then even during the stay. I mean, they probably have your app, and throughout their stay, you might be prompting them of, hey, don't forget you've got complimentary breakfast on this. Don't forget you've got a spa voucher. Use it on this day with your rewards. And so I think it's not revolutionary or anything. It's just truly that's the hardest part to do, and to connect all the disparate systems to make all that happen is an ongoing challenge, especially if you have independent operators. We have independent brands that are all truly separate, and then we have them sync into our system. So it's tricky. But if you can get it right, then you will stand out, because it's so tricky for everyone else. Again, how do you compete? If you can get those right, it is noticed, it's appreciated, and ideally it would be paying itself off with more loyalty from those members.
I think when it comes to travel, that I would like to think so, that if travelers were going to opt in to having their data shared, knowing that they will receive a more personalized, even hyper-personalized experience as a result of it, that they would do so. Others might disagree and argue that actually they don't want their data shared, but if personalization and the use of AI is here to stay, I think it's inevitable that in the future we will sit on more data points, which might make the whole landscape a little bit more confusing and complex, but certainly lots to work with. So exciting times ahead. I'm going to wrap up today's conversation. Thank you to Kristi, Steve, and Victoria for your insights and contributions. I just have some closing slides that I would like to run through before I say a goodbye. We are at that time of year where we are looking ahead to 2025 and looking at those key trends that we believe are going to be shaping the service department, apart hotel, and extended stay industry throughout 2025. So in 2 weeks' time, on the 5th of December, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to be talking about our predicted trends in a live webinar, and we'd love to see you there. The link to register has been popped into the chat. And if you're interested in working with us across our digital events, such as these webinars, please do get in touch with my colleague Katie. Her details are on your screen and also in the chat. Once again, thank you to our panelists for their insights and contributions. Thank you to the residents for their continued support. Always a pleasure working with the team. Thanks all for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time on the final webinar of the year. So take care and see you all soon. Bye-bye.